1 on a template that I give you. So, we're going to read through or talk through the corresponding monograph that goes with this, which I will now struggle to find here. Let's see. Evolution of Life. It's got a 2-page monograph that goes with it. There it is. See, everything is totally new and different in this room for me. Everything is different. Everything's in a different place. Everything works differently. All right. Evolution asserts that all living things are genetically related to one another by a process of what Charles Darwin called descent with modification from common ancestors. A great phrase. This highly schematic diagram shows in broad outline how one thing led to another, resulting in all the life forms now seen on Earth. Time flows forward, going up the page. So things way down here are present in deep evolutionary time, long ago, and anything at the top of the diagram is an extant modern-day organism still with us today. At the bottom are represented the prebiotic or before life events that gave rise to the first cells, probably in deep sea thermal vents nearly 4 billion years ago. And then at the top are the organisms still on Earth today. With names and groups, I've set this diagram up so it shows pretty nearly everything that we look at in Bio 101 and Bio 110 and 120. Now, this is an evolutionary diagram. And the way evolution works here is you always have some life form that's already on the scene because it got there somehow. Who knows, maybe even by creation. That's theoretically possible. So some life form is on the scene, and then when things evolve, DNA mutates. You change DNA, so now you get one new life form. And then the DNA of this can mutate, so you get one new life form. And the DNA of that can mutate, one new life form, one new life form, one new life form, and so forth. So it's like a series of branches in a tree. That's how evolution works. Now, when one life form gives rise to another life form in evolution, first of all, these guys don't even know that it's happening, obviously. Much less are they trying to make it happen. And the life form that was on the scene certainly doesn't say, oh, well, we just gave rise to a new life form here in evolution, so now we can all commit suicide or stop existing or something like that. That's obviously silly. No, these organisms are beautifully adapted to their environment. That's why they were alive in the first place. And they usually continue to chatter along over evolutionary time. So this is why evolution leaves behind what I refer to as a trail of ancestors. And this is why, here's where humans would be right here, and this is why there are perhaps 50 million species on this planet today. 50 million species. Okay, there are two main types of cells in biology. Let's read them out loud. Prokaryotes, shown by small cells, and eukaryotes, shown by bigger cells in my picture. So there are small simple cells, which are the bacteria. And the bacteria come in two types. Okay, let's really give you the big picture here. like any good teacher would. We got prokaryotes and eukaryotes. The prokaryotes consist of two kingdoms in this picture. What are they? Eubacteria, which means true bacteria. Those are the relatively normal kinds of bacteria, kind of everyday bacteria. And then another kingdom, which is actually now put in its own even domain, called what? Archaebacteria, right there. Very remarkable types of prokaryotes that are these are so different from these that they're in their own domain, which is the highest taxonomic level in biology. And we'll talk about these in a minute. Okay, then we have the eukaryotes, which are huge cells. What have I said several times? Talk with me. Eukaryote cells are huge. They're at least 10 times as wide and at least 1,000 times as heavy as a bacteria, and they're enormously more complex with internal membranes and nuclear membranes and chloroplasts and mitochondria. Much, much more complex cells. Those are the eukaryotes. What does that name mean? True nucleus, because their DNA is wrapped in a nucleus. Okay, better go over the color coding here. Talk with me. Membranes are white. Okay, all these membranes are in white. DNA is purple. So these little circles here, I know you can't tell, those are purple in the original diagram. So bacteria have circular DNA.
Bacteria have circular DNA.
Coding for typically just a couple thousand genes, whereas eukaryotes have what? Linear DNA. Enormously bigger genomes, coding for anywhere from a couple thousand to 20,000 genes. Okay, the cell cytoskeleton is in red. I drew it like a starburst here. And the cell cytoskeleton, I'll give a whole hour lecture just on the cytoskeleton pretty soon. But these are like the railroad tracks along which motors move, moving things around inside cells, causing all this kind of motion in a multicellular animal. This is all due to the cell cytoskeleton. So that was a truly stellar event in evolution when the cytoskeleton arose. Green I almost always use for photosynthesis. So this is chlorophyll-mediated photosynthesis in green. And take note that on my picture there are just 4 things with green. Right here, these are the cyclic photosynthesizers, the blue-green algae, which you'll see this week in the lab, and then right here, the line leading to plant-like protists and plants. So those are the organisms that can take in low-energy electrons, hit them with light, and kick them into high-voltage states. They can make their own high-voltage electrons. Blue, water-splitting photosynthesis. See the blue here and the blue here with O2 coming off. We'll talk about that in a minute. What else? Cell walls in brown. Brown, 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 brown. So these have standard bacterial cell walls. These archaebacteria have cell walls, but they're different. Burning of organic molecules producing energy in orange. So where you see orange here, orange arrow here, and everything downstream from here in evolution, with what? Mitochondria. Those are either cells or subcellular organelles, like cells that burn organic molecules in a heterotrophic manner, where you ate your high energy electrons and then let them fall to power the cell.
What does heterotrophic mean?
Hetero means other. Troph, T-R-O-P-H, means feed. So heterotroph means what? Feeding on others. In other words, eating other things, like a predator, for example, or like a tiger or an amoeba swallowing a bacteria. So that's, again, burning of organic molecules to produce energy here in orange. And finally, chemotrophy in yellow. So yellow here and here. So these are cells that can take in chemicals, not organic molecules coming from other living things, but chemicals that are just present either in the earth or on the earth. Take in moderately high energy electrons, let them fall, and power the cell. That's chemotrophy, living off chemicals. All right, so that's the color coding. Let's keep going here. Okay, we covered this. So two main kinds of cells in biology: small simple cells, which are the bacteria, the prokaryotes, which means before nucleus. So named because their DNA is not enclosed in the nucleus. Prokaryotes are small cells to the left. All other organisms in biology are the big complicated cells known as eukaryotes, which means true nucleus, enormously more complex, with the DNA enclosed in a nuclear membrane and laced with other subcellular membranes and organelles. Note, where there's one cell, that means unicellular. Where there's three cells, 1, 2, 3, that means multicellular. So again, with the big picture, we have, let's name the three. A good teacher would show you the things. Good teachers always start with what you know, and then start with the known, and then work to the related unknown in little steps. So what you guys all know about are these multicellular kingdoms, so let's name them. Here we have what? Plants, plant kingdom, multicellular eukaryotes that are photosynthetic, as shown by the green. Here we have what? Animals, like humans or starfish, multicellular eukaryotes that are not photosynthetic, that have to eat their high energy electrons. And finally, fungi, like a mushroom, multicellular eukaryotes that are very similar to animals. Okay, very, very similar to animals, have to eat their high energy electrons. And then, each one of these three multicellular kingdoms is associated probably in evolution, or at least taxonomically in our minds, with a corresponding single-celled group. So these are plants, so these are called what? Plant-like protists, like euglena or diatoms. Talk with me. These are animals.
Animals.
So associated, they evolved probably from these guys, which are animal-like protists, single-celled organisms, like amoebas, crawling around, interacting a lot, like little animals, eating each other, attacking each other, and so forth. And finally, we have fungi, and they probably evolved from what we call fungus-like protists, like slime molds and cellular slime molds. So, not so much this week, but next week in the lab, we're going to study the protist kingdom. And I showed the protist kingdom in blue here. See, kingdom protista in blue. And there's three. Most of the protists are single-celled. Not all of them, but most of them are. Say that. Most of the protists
are single-celled.
And they're all eukaryotes. And let's name the groups again. Fungus-like protists, some of which evolved into fungi. Keep going. Animal-like protists, like an amoeba, some of which evolved into animals. And finally, plant-like protists, like euglena or diatoms, some of which evolved into plants. So there you have kind of the big picture on what the protist kingdom is. How are you doing? Are you all awake?
Yes.
You want to stand up? We're not going to go out yet. You want to stand up? If you're falling asleep, by the way, always feel free. Just you can stand up. Just go stand up in the back. okay, at any time, or stand up on the side, because I realize that it's easy to fall asleep in here.